Listen to this episode if you are looking for a new tool to better understand yourself as a business owner as well as a leader. Hello, today we are talking about the Enneagram test. Now, if you are a lover of personality tests, this episode is going to be one that you are going to love. If you've never taken the Enneagram or never really dove into it, don't know your type, this episode is going to be very eye-opening for you. I actually did my college thesis on this topic, and I really wanted to bring it over to you. I was talking to some of my clients about it the other day, and they really find it really helpful and very interesting. And so, of course, I wanted to bring it over to the podcast fam as well. If you don't know what the Enneagram is, it's basically a personality test that you get a number 1 through 9, and every number kind of signifies where your strengths are, where your weaknesses are, what your inner monologue is, and kind of just the things that really make you who you are. It's a personality test. It's all based on psychology. It was developed by psychologists and some sort of scientist, whoever that was. I kind of forget the full, exactly who developed it, but it was very science-backed. I have found it incredibly helpful for my own personal growth, being able to understand myself, being a leader, managing a team in hiring and firing, as well as understanding myself as an entrepreneur. When things pop up, I think it's easier because I have such a strong knowledge of who I am according to this personality test, and I have found it so spot on. And so many of my clients, my colleagues, my friends, my coworkers, my employees, when I had them, all have found it really helpful to be able to better understand themselves and to be able to see kind of their strengths and their weaknesses. Self-awareness is so incredibly important as a business owner because I say it all the time. Business ownership is one of the biggest personal growth endeavors you will ever embark on because it will bring up all of your insecurities, all of your inner monologues, and that is what we are going to talk about today. The Enneagram is a great tool to be able to understand when it's actually just your mindset that is holding you back from taking solid action. It helps you on your decision making, on your leadership, on your emotional resilience. A lot of times something will pop up and I will say, that's a me thought. This isn't something that's actually happening. There isn't actual fact behind it. It's just because of my own brain, my own programming. And the more successful I become, the more time I spend with successful people, the more that I really realize how incredibly helpful this mindset stuff is. The personal growth is in being a leader and a business owner. Being a leader and managing a team or just being a business owner in general really does come up with so many blocks. And that is really something that the Enneagram is going to be very helpful with. Again, has 9 personality types, and basically you usually are your core personality, your core number. So I am an Enneagram 3 and my wing is a 2. So you're either a 3 wing 2 or a 3 wing 4. You're kind of whichever number you are in the main, and then the one either left or right of it. So if you're a 9, you can either be an 8 or a 1 wing or whatever that is. You can go and take a personality test online right now. I urge you to do so. It might be more helpful before you listen to the episode, or you can kind of listen through it and then maybe take it at the end so you can kind of see all of the different ways so you can really dive into really understanding what it is. But there are Instagram profiles out there. There's a big conversation on TikTok about it. You can Google it. There's YouTube videos to really better understand who you are. I have an Enneagram book that I think is really great as well. If you're ever looking for any other resources, feel free to reach out to me and I'd be happy to send you any book recommendations or different ways in that sense as well. But without further ado, I would love to dive into this topic with you. Like I said, I have 2 business degrees. I have one in business management and marketing, and my business management college thesis was on this topic of how to utilize the Enneagram in the workplace. Now, first things first, I want to give a disclaimer that one of the major rules of the Enneagram in general is that you should not use the Enneagram to be able to better understand other people. You shouldn't be utilizing the Enneagram to feel like you alter the way that you work with people and the way that you treat people. But that's exactly what I actually utilized the Enneagram for within my college thesis. And I want to kind of bring that idea to you here today. Now, of course, we are always treating people with respect act with kindness and with patience. But I think it's a really great way that you can understand A, better understand yourself, and B, better understand how to manage conflict, how to give feedback, how to hire, how to fire, how to have a diverse kind of different emotions and feelings and weaknesses and strengths within your team as you are doing that as well. And so just being totally transparent, this isn't a way that the initial, like the psychologists really wanted you to utilize the Enneagram. They wanted to utilize it as a self-growth tool. If that's all you want to do, that's totally fine. However, I do think it is incredibly important. And I have utilized it when I was running my family's business and I have a major team. I knew what everybody's Enneagram was, and I absolutely utilized it a lot to be able to give feedback, to help in the firing processes or constructive criticism, anything like that. The Enneagram allows you to identify your strengths in your decision making, in leadership. It allows you to identify when you are feeling your best, how are you acting, and what are the characteristics that you have, as well as it helps you identify in like weakness or in times of stress. It helps you kind of identify what your triggers are, how you respond under pressure, what those kind of signalings are, those like, the flags are that you are in stress. And this is kind of more of a response of just like your own programming, as opposed to it actually being something that is just happening for you. And so it also helps you understand your inner monologue and how it drives or hinders your action, because a lot of times our own mindset blocks are actually what's holding us back to hitting those next steps in business and in growth, because we really are the cap to our business. If you are not taking action because you have this inner monologue saying something to you, then that is your own mindset getting in the way of you taking the strategic action that you know of how to get there. I'm so excited to really get into the nitty-gritty of this and really understanding how the different types work. And I kind of just want to give you some examples. First things first, I just want to give you a warm welcome to the Small Business Growth Podcast. I'm your host, Madison Page. If you are new here, hello, welcome. We like to teach in a fun, conversational type of way here, and not in this scripted interview nonsense. This is us sitting down. I like to say it's kind of like sipping coffee with a biz bestie, where we are sitting face to face having conversation and really just sharing raw and real and genuine business growth advice, sharing tangible tips, strategies, tactics for you to utilize in your business. Again, also, if you have not heard, we did make this a two-way street. We have had over 200,000 downloads of the Small Business Growth Podcast, which is still an insane number in my brain, that 200,000 people have listened to me ramble, talk about business and all of the things. But I wanted to make this kind of a two-way street. A lot of times I'm talking right at you. I want to be able to talk with you and have this conversation even more. This week, we did launch the Small Business Growth Cafe. What that is it is a completely free community for small business owners to connect with people, gain extra support, gain insight, have some exclusive resources from me, and really just build a network of small business owners that are doing the same things that you are doing, as well as to have a stronger touch point with me where I can have that conversation as well. Everything we do here is building a community, and I wanted to create a space where you have community with other business owners, as well as I can have better connection with you. So if you are wanting to join the Small Business Cafe, click the link in the show notes and join our free community. It's just based on Slack. Put your email in, you'll get the invite, and I can't wait to chat with you in there and stalk your business and see where you are. So without further ado, I really just want to talk about kind of how you can actually tangibly utilize this when we're really looking at it. There are these nine different examples, these 9 different personalities. So just to give you an example, I am a type 3, which is the achiever. The achiever, their core motivation is to be successful and admired. Their strength is they are goal-driven, they're efficient, they're adaptable, they're inspiring. A lot of entrepreneurs are type 3s. Their challenges is that they can be a workaholic. A lot of times they are kind of image focused, and they have this major fear of failure. In business, they are a highly motivated leader, but they need to slow down and reflect. If you know anything about my story, you know that this is incredibly spot on for me. I'm very goal driven. I'm very passionate. I'm very I am this achiever. I identify as a high achieving type of person. I am somebody that has constantly had a project, had something that I was working on. And that isn't me saying here I'm this great person. It's just me saying this is something that I truly identify as. I am passionate and ambitious. And I think that needs to be accepted more in conversation. I don't know if you guys have seen the Timothy Chalamet's acceptance speech of his SAG award, where he was talking about this. And it's so crazy to me. He basically said, I know that I shouldn't say this, but I want to be one of the greats, and I know that I deserve this award. And I've worked really hard for this spot. And there has been so much backlash. And to me, that is something that is so crazy that people aren't proud of him for being, they're be a little humble about it. And I think that is incredibly humble. He's confident in what he's doing, and he knows exactly how he wants to build. But that's because of my achiever personality type. It feels very similar to me. So some of the things that you can see here is you get your core motivations, your strengths, your weaknesses, what your inner monologue is. My inner monologue is that things have to be done right, and I have to be succeeding in order to really feel fulfilled. If you know anything about my story, you know that this is a narrative that I actually try to rewrite and have that balance out there as well, which is where my wing, which is the wing 2, which is the helper category, their core motivations is to help and to give and to almost they're the people pleasers of the bunch. And they really are somebody that really likes to overgive. They can overextend themselves, and they want to help everybody do all of the things. So looking at my business and what I do, I'm the achiever building this business, having all of these goals and all of these dreams, and I'm helping people and coaching people and consulting people, which clearly can get you to where my business is today and why I love it so much. Another example is the type 5, which is the investigator, or sometimes referred to as the observer. These are my analytical folks out there. The core motivator is to understand and be competent. They really want to consistently learn forever. They are analytical, they're knowledgeable, they're very hyper independent in the case of they never want to have to rely on other people. They want to be able to do everything themselves and be able to do it really well and understand what it is that they're doing. Their challenges is that they kind of withdraw from people. A lot of times they overthink, they overanalyze what they're looking at because they want to do it so well. And they avoid a lot of emotional engagement to things because their brain is so analytical, is so strategic. In business, they're great with research, with strategy, with organization, with analyzing all of those, but they need kind of that personal, the community touch. They really need to, they need to utilize their resources to understand that might not be something that is innate to them, to really build this community and connect with people and engage and really have open and raw conversations with people. So you can see how once you identify what your type is, you're able to kind of see what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and where, just innately who you are, where you might struggle as a business owner that you might just need to either outsource or you need to put more love, you need to put more care into that area. And so I really just want to dive in to how I utilize this, why I find it so incredibly helpful, and how you can really utilize it in hard times and in growth seasons. And I just want to say, you might take this test and look at your number and be like, this is totally not accurate. And that's okay. They are really in-depth questions. It's how organized are you? And then, so I can go from how organized are you to how do you feel about your relationship with your parents? And it goes from all over the spectrum. You might take this, you need to kind of be in an open, reflective mind. And sometimes I've actually heard of having your best friend or your spouse taking it for you, because sometimes it can even be hard to answer it for yourself. Now, of course, we want to be able to be self-aware enough to be able to say, you know what, I'm not very organized, or you know what, if something isn't perfect, it does really bother me. However, that might not be the case. So I want you to take that test, and whether it's before, now, or after, whatever that kind of looks like, and we kind of just have to be self-aware and open to, this test might feel a little bit like it's stabbing you in the chest. You're like, Maddie, why did you do this to me at 11 a.m. on a Tuesday, or whatever you're listening to this? You're like, I need to like cope. I need to now go back and be like, wow, I just got so called out. But what it does, it is allows you to, it helps you navigate those hard times and really understand where you can grow through it and how you can really utilize that in under stress and under growth. Without getting too deep into this, something that I find really helpful is just the self-awareness of understanding when I am in growth or when I am in stress. So you have this main type, and then you almost take on the characteristics of other types whenever you are in growth or whenever you are in stress. So personally, when I am a type 3, when I am in growth, I know the characteristics that I am going to have are responsible, loyal, prepared, organized with it, very much so the characteristics of a type 6. But I also know when I am in stress that I take on characteristics of a type 9, which can be conflict avoidant, passive, indecisive, and I just almost like I do a lot of inaction. And so what that tells me is when I notice those things popping up, I have to identify them right away. I can be self-aware enough to be like, all right, why am I not making a decision here? Why am I being kind of indecisive? Why am I avoiding this conflict? And how can I kind of push myself to get through it? Whereas if I didn't know that this was a characteristic that I often have within stress, I might not know that that is actually something that I am holding myself back from doing, whether that is firing somebody or giving somebody feedback or something along those lines. Is I have to identify that that is my own mindset block getting in the way, that I should just, keep the peace, be quiet. And I really do need to have that conversation with people. So it allows you to manage those growth times and manage those hard times and really see where you are leaning towards one or the other. It allows you to really have a strategy to move from this reactivity to conscious response when things get tough. So like for me, when I know I am avoiding something, I'm being a little bit more passive, I just kind of put it on the back burner. It's almost like, it's out of sight, out of mind. When I know that I am doing that, I realize that that is something that is, within me that I need to tackle, that is something within my stress response that is popping up, that I know that, okay, Maddie, you are kind of putting that off. You've been putting it off for a couple of weeks. We need to tackle that to remove that stress from your plate. I also know that when I feel really on it, that I'm feeling very organized. I'm feeling very prepared. I'm feeling very responsible and very much so just like organized and with it and structured. And when I'm feeling those things, I always kind of like, all right, whatever I'm doing is working. This routine that I'm on, my morning routine, my evening routine, my supplements, whatever that might be, things are very much so working. So the Enneagram personally can kind of help you identify where you are self-sabotaging, when you are in growth, and how can we really push through some of our inaction that is actually just our own internal monologue. And again, I had to really study my own personal, and honestly, I thought that I was a 2 for a long time. And I think I am much more 2 personally and much more 3 professionally. If you're really into the Enneagram, you'll understand what I mean by that. But there are a lot of pieces that I was like, holy cow, it helped me identify and kind of like put a name and a reason behind so much of my feelings, my reactions, my triggers, all of those different pieces. Something else that you could really utilize the Enneagram for is utilizing it to manage your team. I think it's really helpful in conflict resolution, in hiring, in firing, in feedback, all of those pieces. So whenever we had a new group of staff members come in every spring at my family's business, I would have people do the Enneagram. It was one of our first kind of group activities, and I would do a presentation on it and talk about it, how it's really good for personal development, but it also is really helpful to help people identify who they are. Now, again, this was not one of the purposes of the people that created the Enneagram, but I found it to be incredibly helpful. Now, again, you're not going to absolutely change your response or how you provide feedback, but you might take a slight different approach. And so when you're hiring somebody, you can identify their motivations beyond kind of those surface level skills. I have seen people put this on their application. So you can know, okay, what are their innate strengths and their innate weaknesses? And again, they don't want you to do that because you don't know where they are within their healing journey. You don't know if they have really healed through some of those. Of course, there's people that are deeper into their healing journey that respond very differently to things. So you don't want it to be make or break, but I do think it is very helpful helpful to identify where they're at, who they are, and kind of what are those deepest kind of internal motivations as well as monologues that happen. For me, I think the biggest place that I have utilized it was in either conflict resolution, firing, or feedback in general. So a good example was at my family's business, we had an incident that I had to fire somebody. One of the first things that I did when I knew that I had to do this, I looked at what her Enneagram was. She was an 8. An 8 is the challenger, but they kind of like it to be delivered to them straight. They don't need a lot of fluff. They're hyper independent and they are sensitive on the inside. However, they're kind of like that tough shell, and so they don't want to be babied around the topic. Whereas if I were to deliver that news to an Enneagram 2, who is the helper, they're a little softer, they're a little sensitive, they're a little bit more on the emotional side of the types, I would have delivered the news in a very different way. With the 8, I was very firm, I was very direct, I was very quick with it because I didn't want to have to sit there and move all of this, really dawdle around all of the topic. I just kind of said, hey, this is what happened. It has been brought to our attention and we needed to take this course of action throughout. And she appreciated it. And honestly, in the amount of times that I said, she was like, am I being fired? Can you just tell me? And I said, yes, you are. She literally just wanted it delivered to her straight, which was a very classic 8 way to handle that. And so for me, it has helped me be able to better adapt it to how that person is going to respond in a better way. And of course, it's not your responsibility to take on how all of this response is going to be. But if you want to be the best leader possible, we want to be able to really solidly understand our team and how we can best help them, how we can best motivate them, and what are the pieces that make them feel appreciated as well. This isn't just for the hiring and the firing and the feedback and the conflict. It's also, how do I know that this person feels very appreciated? So a type 2 really loves to feel very loved, seen, and heard. And so those people might need a little bit more personal appreciation and a lot more recognition and seeing the very little things that they're doing, versus that type 8 that might not fully really need that level of appreciation. They're a little bit more hyper independent. Again, that type 5 really loves being analytical. They love to really fully understand what's going on. So giving them different styles of compliments, giving them different styles of appreciation can change based on their Enneagram type. And of course, this took me a really long time to be able to really fully understand all of the different types. How I would recommend starting off with it is really identifying who you are, really understanding you as a leader, and really feeling like you can understand how the Enneagram looks in your world. And then you can start to identify some of these other people. And so you can kind of go from there. Another thing that I think is really helpful about the Enneagram, especially in the hiring or whatever, is identifying diversity of feelings and thought styles within your team for that stronger business culture. Having the Enneagram and understanding who they are, again, you understand their innate strengths and their innate weaknesses and how they handle things. Some are more analytical, some are more emotional, some are going to be more organized, some are going to be a lot more fun, playful, free thinkers. And so having a variety of different styles of people on teams, on your team, on breakout teams, on a project management level, having a bunch of different people, somebody that is creative, somebody that's analytical, somebody that's independent, and somebody that is your best right-hand person, that might be really helpful to understand how people are kind of at their core. So how to really utilize this Enneagram is understanding your own mental blocks, how they pop up, and really being able to exercise your own self-awareness. That is a really big piece of this, as well as delegating tasks aligned with people's strengths, as well as understanding people's innate weaknesses. And when they are in stress, you can understand, oh, okay, they must be pretty stressed out by this. This is something that is not working well for them. Let's identify how we can make the process better, how we can better support them as a team member. You can understand people's kind of internal monologues when conflict or feedback comes up, and how you can best deliver something to them that is going to resonate, make them feel appreciated, and make them feel like, okay, this is something that I do want to still be a part of, and not take that conflict to heart. It's just the best delivery possible. As well as when when you are leading meetings and giving feedback, you kind of just know who's in front of you. You know how to better manage your staff, manage your team when they are in growth and when they are in stress. It allows you to identify when they are feeling stressed out and when they are feeling their best as well. When they are feeling really good about where they're at, you can see them thrive and you can see them flourish in the characteristics that they have. You can better provide them with appreciation, feedback, all of those pieces. It is a great way to kind of motivate yourself and your team. If you don't have a team yet, it's a great exercise to understand your own self-awareness and better understand yourself. As a business owner, again, it is one of the greatest personal growth endeavors you will ever go on. And so the more that we can better understand ourselves, our emotions, our triggers, our insecurities, it allows us to push past our mental blocks. So much of business is mental. So much of business is insecurity. So much of business is being able to push past those mindset blocks and be able to keep on going. But we can't push past mindset blocks unless we know and are self-aware enough to see that they are there. So I encourage you to take the Enneagram. I encourage you to have any team members that you have to take the Enneagram. And I think the best process of this is take the test, really look into your number, see if it makes sense for you, if you feel like you really resonate well with it or not. If you don't, explore the other numbers and say, okay, no, wait, this one feels a little bit more like me, and start to really understand your type first. And before you start really understanding other people's types, if you dive too much into trying to understand other people's and their psyche and their strengths and their weaknesses, it can kind of get a little bit confusing. There's a lot of numbers, there's a lot of growth and strengths and weaknesses and all of these pieces. It's best to understand yourself first, use it as this personal kind of tool, and then you can kind of explore to utilize it with other people. And then you get to the point where you know all of the types and you're meeting people. And again, this is not the way that the psychologist that created it wanted it to be used, but you sit down and you're like, okay, like what type is this? Like I meet a friend and I'm like, you've got to be a type 8, or like, you're totally a type 5. And it's just really understanding who they are as a person, what they really love, what makes them feel loved, what makes them feel appreciated, what is that inner monologue and kind of like that childhood message that they heard, that you can best support them in those different ways. I really would love you to take this test. I want to see what type you are. A lot of my clients are 1, 2, 3s, or 4s. The majority of my clients, I would say, are 1, 2s, or 3s. And then the 4s, once you kind of see all of the growths and the strengths and the weaknesses, the 4s make a lot of sense as well. But I would love to hear who you are, what your type is. If this is something that you really love, it's a tool that I absolutely love. I kind of go in waves and ebbs and flows of really diving into it and really utilizing it as a great tool for myself as well as for my team, and really understanding who those people are. I would love to keep this conversation going with you guys inside of the Small Business Cafe. I'm going to be asking you guys to share your types in there and really have some conversation. We'll be able to provide some resources and insight on what this might mean for you, what questions you have. So definitely click that link in the show notes. If you are not inside yet, you can join the Small Business Cafe. We will start having that conversation. Again, it's a completely free community for our listeners to kind of have conversation on every episode, as well as just other business topics, get feedback on your ideas, ask your questions to other business owners, and really dive deeper into this discussion there. So if you would love to join us, click that link in the show notes. This is all for our episode today. I'm so happy that you're here. Make sure that you subscribe to the episode. Only 35% of you that listen to our episodes are actually subscribed or follow us. We have had 200,000 downloads, which is incredible. I love you all. I know you're coming back episode after episode. You might as well just give us a subscribe or a follow wherever you listen, and you will never miss an episode moving forward. I love you. I'm rooting for you. I'm in your corner always. I can't wait to continue this Enneagram conversation with you in the Small Business Cafe. This is one of my favorite business conversations to have. I look forward to chit-chatting with you there, and I will see you in the next episode.